The first thing he noticed wasn't the speed. It wasn't the screaming wind or even the angle of the dive. It was the sound. A low, rising wail like something alive. Not mechanical. Not normal. It started as a distant hum, then grew into a piercing scream that clawed its way into his skull. It wasn't just loud, it felt designed, like it was meant to do something to you. He tightened his grip on the controls. Steady, he muttered, though there was no one in the cockpit to hear him. The aircraft beneath him wasn't American. It wasn't familiar. Every gauge, every switch, every vibration felt foreign, because it was. This was the Junkers Ju-87, the Stuka, the same aircraft Allied pilots had cursed, feared, and learned to respect the hard way. The same machine soldiers on the ground described as a death scream from the sky. And today, he was flying it. It had started as a test. Just another captured aircraft evaluation. Something routine. Something controlled. At least, that's what they told him. The war had produced strange situations. Sometimes, intact enemy aircraft fell into Allied hands. Engineers wanted to understand them. Pilots were chosen to fly them, to feel how they handled, how they fought, how they thought. He had flown dozens of aircraft before. Fighters, bombers, trainers. Each one had its quirks. Each one had its limits. He assumed this would be the same. He was wrong. From the moment the engine started, something felt different. The aircraft vibrated in a way he couldn't quite explain. Not unstable, just purposeful, like it wasn't built for comfort or elegance. It was built for something else. He taxied slowly, eyes scanning the unfamiliar layout. German labels, unfamiliar markings. But the fundamentals were the same. Throttle, rudder, flaps. Airplanes, at their core, always spoke the same language. He pushed the throttle forward. The engine roared. The Stuka rolled down the runway, gathering speed. Faster, faster. Then lift. It climbed. Heavy, controlled. Not agile like a fighter, but steady, determined. He circled once, twice, testing responsiveness. Everything felt fine, normal, even, which almost made him laugh. This is what everyone's afraid of, he muttered. Then he remembered the briefing. Don't judge it in level flight. Take it up and dive it. That's where the Stuka revealed itself. He climbed higher. The ground below shrank into patterns, fields, roads, scattered buildings. Peaceful from above, almost unreal. He leveled off and took a breath. This was the moment. He reached for the dive lever. For a second, he hesitated. Not out of fear, just instinct, because something about this plane made him pause. Then he pushed it forward. The nose dropped, not gently, not gradually. It fell, straight down. The horizon vanished. The sky disappeared. The ground surged upward like a tidal wave. And then the siren screamed. It was worse than he expected. Far worse. It wasn't just a sound. It was a presence, a weapon that filled the air, cutting through everything. It felt like it was vibrating inside his chest, inside his skull. He clenched his jaw. The speed built rapidly, too rapidly. Wind hammered the aircraft. The controls stiffened. The world blurred into streaks of green and brown. He glanced at the altimeter, dropping fast, very fast, too fast. His instincts kicked in. Pull up, now. But he didn't, because this aircraft wasn't designed for early pulls. It demanded precision, timing, discipline, and if you got it wrong, the ground kept coming. Closer, closer. The scream grew louder, unbearable. At first, it felt like control. Then it felt like surrender. The deeper he went into the dive, the less the aircraft felt like something he was flying, and the more it felt like something he was inside of, a system, a weapon. The Stuka wasn't reacting to him. It was guiding him. The controls resisted, not violently, but deliberately, as if the aircraft was telling him, wait, not yet. His training screamed at him, pull up. But another part of him, the part that understood machines, that trusted design, held steady. This aircraft had been engineered for this exact moment, for this exact dive, for this exact fear. The airframe shook violently. Wind roared past the cockpit. The siren howled without mercy. Below him, The ground was no longer abstract. He could see details now. Buildings, trees, shadows, targets. And then something strange happened. Something he hadn't expected. His fear faded. Not completely, but enough, because in its place, something else emerged. Focus, clarity, a cold, sharp awareness. This is what the Stuka did, not just to its enemies, but to its pilot. The dive angle was extreme, nearly vertical. No American aircraft he'd flown behaved like this. Most would shake, protest, fight against such a maneuver, but not this one. This one embraced it. The scream intensified, and suddenly he understood this wasn't just for the ground. This wasn't just for the enemy. This was for him. The sound locked him into the moment. There was no distraction, no wandering thoughts, no hesitation. Just a dive, just a target, just the inevitable pull. His eyes flicked to the altitude. Too low now. It was time. He pulled. Hard. The G-forces hit instantly. Brutal. Crushing. It felt like an invisible hand slammed him into his seat. His chest compressed. His vision narrowed. The aircraft groaned, but held. This was what it was built for. The nose came up. Slowly at first. Then faster. The ground stopped rushing toward him. The scream began to fade. And then, silence. Not total silence. The engine was still there. The wind still whispered. But compared to what he had just experienced, it felt like nothing. He leveled out, hands trembling slightly, breathing heavier than he realized. For a moment, he just flew, straight, level, quiet, and that's when it hit him. It wasn't the fear. It wasn't the speed. It wasn't even the physical strain. It was the design. Everything about that aircraft, from the dive angle to the siren, was built for one purpose: to dominate the human mind. He imagined being on the ground, hearing that scream, looking up, seeing a plane falling straight at you, not gliding, not approaching, but falling, like gravity itself had chosen you. There was no time to think, no time to react, just sound, fear, impact, and suddenly, the stories made sense. Why soldiers broke, why formations scattered, why even trained men froze under a Stuka attack. It wasn't just bombing. It was psychological warfare. And the pilot wasn't just flying a plane. He was delivering terror. The realization sat heavy in his chest. He turned back toward the airfield. The Stuka felt different now. Not foreign, not strange, just understood. He landed smoothly. Textbook. The aircraft rolled to a stop. Engine idling. Ground crew approached. Officers waited. They wanted answers. Data. Observations. He shut down the engine. The propeller slowed, then stopped. The silence returned. Real silence. He opened the cockpit, climbed down, boots hitting the ground. Someone spoke to him, asked a question. He didn't hear it. Or maybe he did. He just couldn't respond. Because for the first time since the dive, he wasn't in the moment anymore. He was thinking. They waited for him to speak, to explain, to analyze, to break it down into numbers and performance metrics. Speed, angle, stability. That's what test pilots were supposed to do. But he didn't. He just stood there, looking at the aircraft, the Stuka, sitting quietly on the runway, as if it had done nothing at all. How do you explain something like that? How do you describe a machine that doesn't just fly, but affects you? He could talk about the dive angle. He could mention the G-forces. He could describe the handling. But none of that would capture it. None of that would explain the one thing that mattered. The feeling. The moment when the world tilted downward and the sound began. Because that's what stayed with him. Not the mechanics. Not the data. The sound. It echoed in his mind even now. Faint. Distant. But still there. And he realized something unsettling. The Stuka wasn't terrifying because it was powerful. It wasn't even the fastest or most advanced aircraft of the war. It was terrifying because it understood something simple, something deeply human. Fear, not just how to create it, but how to control it, shape it, weaponize it. The siren wasn't necessary for the aircraft to function. It didn't make it fly better. It didn't improve accuracy. It existed for one reason: to reach into the minds of those below and break them before the bomb ever hit. And it worked, because even now, standing safely on the ground, he felt it, that brief moment in the dive, when instinct screamed at him to pull up, when logic told him to wait, when the sound drowned out everything else. That moment didn't leave you. It stayed. He finally looked up, met the eyes of the men waiting. One of them asked again. Well, he opened his mouth, paused. What could he say? That it was fast? They already knew. That it was dangerous? Of course it was. But that wasn't the truth. The truth was harder, stranger. So he said the only thing that came close. It's not the plane. He stopped, searching for words that didn't exist. It's what it does to you. They didn't fully understand. How could they? But he did, because for a few moments in the sky, he hadn't just flown the Stuka. He had experienced it. And that was enough. Enough to leave him silent. Not from fear, but from understanding. Because some machines don't just fight wars. They change the way humans feel them. And once you understand that, there's nothing left to say. They wrote their reports that day. Pages filled with technical notes, dive angles, structural limits, recovery timing. Everything measurable was recorded. Everything important wasn't. In the following days, others would fly the Stuka too. Some would describe it as stable. Others would call it outdated. A few would even dismiss it. But none of them said what he felt. Or maybe they did, just not out loud. Because admitting it meant admitting something uncomfortable. That war wasn't just fought with machines, weapons, and tactics, but with emotion, with fear, with perception. The Stuka didn't need to outfly every aircraft. It didn't need to outrun fighters or dominate the skies. It only needed a few seconds. A single dive, a single scream, and in those seconds, it changed everything. Years later, long after the war ended, long after newer, faster, more advanced aircraft filled the skies, he would still remember that moment. Not the takeoff, not the landing, the dive. Sometimes, in quiet moments, the memory would return, not as a full image, not as a clear thought, just a feeling, a faint echo of that rising scream. And for a split second, he was back there, high above the ground, the nose tipping forward, gravity taking hold, waiting. He never spoke much about it after that. Not because he couldn't, but because he didn't need to. Some experiences don't translate into words. Some things are only understood once, and never fully explained again. And maybe that's the strangest part of all. The Stuka wasn't the most advanced aircraft. It wasn't the fastest. It wasn't even the most destructive. But it was one of the few machines in history that could leave a pilot speechless. Not from what it did, but from what it made him feel.